Captain Zexlar stood motionless on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory *, his four eyes fixed on the holographic display of the blue-green planet before them. In his 1,000 years of service to the Meridian Empire, he had overseen the submission of 37 civilizations. This one, he thought, would be no different. Curious, his science officer, Ventra, muttered while analyzing the data streams. Their orbital defense network is extensive. Her tendrils twitched nervously as she spoke, a gesture that didn't escape Zexalar's notice. Elaborate, he commanded, floating closer to her station. They call themselves humans, and their planet Earth. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They've only achieved FTL travel in the last 50 years. But, she paused, double-checking her readings. They have more weapons in orbit than any civilization we've encountered at this stage of development. Zexalar dismissed her concerns with a wave of his upper arm. The Empire controlled 70% of the known galaxy. Their ships could destroy planets. Their energy shields could withstand supernovas. What threat could these newcomers pose? Send the standard submission request, he ordered. Make sure they understand the consequences of defiance. The communications officer transmitted the carefully crafted message, the same one that had brought hundreds of worlds into the Empire's embrace. Greetings, people of Earth. You stand in the presence of the Meridian Empire, rulers of the galaxy. Submit to our authority, and you shall prosper under our guidance. Resist and face extinction. You have one planetary rotation to respond. The bridge crew expected the usual reactions: panic, diplomatic pleas, or immediate surrender. Instead, after just 3 minutes, they received a response that made them all pause. To the Meridian Empire vessels, we acknowledge your message. Before you take any action, we strongly advise against hostile moves toward Earth or any human settlement. For your own safety, maintain your current distance. This is not a threat. This is a warning meant to prevent unnecessary loss of life. Yours. Silence fell over the bridge. In the Empire's 10,000-year history, no species had ever responded this way. There was no fear in the message, no anger, no desperation, just concern. For them. Check their planetary history, Zexalar ordered, feeling uneasy for the first time in centuries. The reports came in quickly. Earth had survived multiple extinction events. Their species had faced death dozens of times and emerged stronger. Their recorded history was an endless series of wars, each more devastating than the last. Yet instead of destroying themselves, they grew more unified, more resilient. Captain, Ventra called out, her voice shaking. I'm detecting something unusual about their weapons. They're not like anything in our database. The energy signatures are completely unknown. Zexalar floated to the command chair, his pride warring with his instincts. The logical move would be to retreat and analyze this unusual species further. But he had a duty to the Empire. He couldn't show weakness before primitives. Prepare a small battle group, he announced. 3 destroyers should be sufficient for a disciplinary action. Let's show them what real power looks like. As the orders went out, a final message came from Earth. We understand you must follow your protocols. We will therefore activate Protocol Thermopylae. Please remember, we warned you. The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. In all their conquest databases, no species had ever sounded so resigned to violence, so prepared for it, so certain of its outcome. They would soon learn why. The humans weren't afraid of war. They were afraid of what they would do to the Empire when it began. Chief Cultural Researcher Miratel couldn't sleep. For 3 straight cycles, she had been studying human history, and what she found disturbed her deeply. Sitting in her private research chamber aboard the Eternal Glory *, she played with her ceremonial necklace, a nervous habit she'd developed since beginning this project. Display comparison charts, she commanded. The room's holographic system came to life, showing evolution patterns of various species across the galaxy. Every other known species followed a similar path. They started as prey, developed cooperation to survive, and slowly evolved intelligence as a defense mechanism. But humans were different. Her assistant, Krell, entered the chamber carrying fresh data crystals. "You need to see this, Chief," he said, his scales changing color to show his anxiety. "We've finished analyzing their prehistoric data." The new information filled the room. Unlike other species that invented tools first, humans had invented weapons before anything else. Their first creation wasn't a farming tool or a cooking pot. It was a sharpened rock for killing. They didn't just adapt to their environment. They fought it, conquered it, and reshaped it to their will. "Look at their planet's wildlife." Krell pointed to another display. "Every single predator on Earth is more dangerous than the deadliest creatures we found elsewhere. Their oceans have monsters. Their lands have beasts that could tear apart our strongest armor. Even their tiny insects can kill." Miratel felt her tendrils curl in distress. "And they survived all of this. They evolved in this environment." "Not just survived," Krell corrected. "They became the apex predators. They hunted creatures many times their size using something called persistence hunting. They would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion." The implications were terrifying. While the Empire's species evolved in relatively stable environments, humans had been forged in a world that tried to kill them every day. They didn't just learn to survive. They learned to win against impossible odds. Miratel pulled up their military history next. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "Every species reduces their military after achieving planetary unification. But humans, they kept building weapons," Krell finished. "Bigger ones, better ones. Even in peace, they prepared for war." The data showed something else unusual. Human weapons development didn't follow normal patterns. They would make massive leaps forward, solving problems in ways that seemed impossible. Their nuclear physics, space travel, and computer technology all advanced in huge jumps during their wars. "Send an urgent message to command," Miratel decided. "They need to understand what we're dealing with." She began dictating. Analysis of human history reveals critical concerns. Unlike normal species evolution, humans are persistence predators with unprecedented survival capabilities. Their technology is not primitive. It's purpose-built for warfare. Evidence suggests they have been preparing for interstellar conflict since before they left their atmosphere. Krell interrupted with another finding. "Chief, look at their entertainment. Their most popular stories are about fighting overwhelming odds. They call them underdog stories, where the weaker side wins through determination and clever tactics." Miratel added this to her report, along with a final warning. "Most concerning of all, humans maintain massive military forces even in peace. They have a saying, 'Peace through strength.' Their entire civilization is built on the principle of being ready for war at any moment." Just then, an alert flashed across their screens. Captain Zexlar had launched the disciplinary fleet against Earth. Miratel felt her heart sink. "They don't understand," she whispered. "We're not dealing with normal primitives. We're dealing with a species that turns survival into an art form." Krell looked at the battle group's trajectory, then back at the human historical data. "Should we warn the captain?" "It's too late," Miratel said, watching the ships move toward Earth. "The humans tried to warn us, but we didn't listen. Now we're about to learn why a species that survived countless extinction events told us to run." Admiral Sarah Chen stood in Earth's Central Defense Command, her weathered face illuminated by the massive holographic display showing 3 Imperial destroyers approaching Earth. Around her, military personnel from every nation worked at their stations, their movements calm and practiced. "They really didn't listen to our warning," she said, shaking her head. "Status of Protocol Thermopylae." Colonel Rodriguez, her second in command, checked his tablet. "All systems ready, Admiral. The Ghost Fleet is in position. Quantum nets are charged. Gravity traps are set. On the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory Captain Zexlar watched his 3 destroyers move into attack formation. Their ships were massive, each one capable of destroying a small moon. He felt nothing but confidence as he gave the order to begin the disciplinary action. "Destroyers reporting ready, Captain," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons charge, shields at maximum." Zexlar smiled. "Send the humans one last chance to surrender. Let them see our ships and know their doom approaches." But the response they received wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of panic or surrender, Earth's governments sent a simple text message. "Protocol Thermopylae activated. We're sorry about your ships." Before Zexlar could process what this meant, strange readings appeared on his screens. "Captain," his science officer screamed. "Unknown energy signatures appearing around our destroyers." In Earth's Defense Command, Admiral Chen watched as humanity's true military power revealed itself. The primitive orbital defense network was just a decoy. The real weapons had been invisible, waiting. "Ghost Fleet, you are cleared to engage," she commanded. Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open. Ships appeared out of nowhere, human vessels using technology the Empire had never seen before. They had been there all along, hidden by quantum cloaking fields. "What in the galaxy?" Zexlar gasped as his sensors went crazy. The human ships were using weapons that shouldn't exist. Gravity beams that crushed Imperial shields like paper, quantum torpedoes that phased through armor, and energy weapons that ignored all known laws of physics. On the first destroyer, Imperial Captain Vectol tried to respond. "Evasive maneuvers. Return Phi." His words cut off as his ship was caught in a gravity web, the massive vessel crumpling like a tin can. The second destroyer turned to run, but space itself seemed to fight against them. Their advanced engines, capable of crossing light years in moments, couldn't move. They were trapped in a quantum net that made movement impossible. "How?" Zexlar whispered as he watched the third destroyer vanish completely, erased by weapons his sensors couldn't even understand. Their technology was supposed to be primitive. Back on Earth, Colonel Rodriguez reported, "All 3 destroyers neutralized, Admiral. 0 casualties on our side. 0 debris. The quantum singularities disposed of the remains as planned." Admiral Chen nodded. "Send this message to the Imperial flagship. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. We developed these weapons over a century ago, when we first looked at the stars and realized we weren't alone. They are our old technology. Please don't make us show you our new ones." On the Eternal Glory Zexlar received the message with trembling hands. His mighty empire had just lost 3 destroyers in less than 5 minutes. No distress signals, no debris, no chance to fight back. Just gone. "Captain," his communications officer called out, voice shaking. "We're receiving thousands of data packets from Earth. They're sending us their military history, every war they've ever fought, every weapon they've ever made, every battle tactic they've developed." Zexlar understood then. This wasn't a threat. The humans were trying to explain, to help them understand why they had warned them to run. Because now the Empire had to face a terrifying truth. They hadn't found a primitive civilization to conquer. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment. The Imperial War Council chamber was silent. 12 of the Empire's highest-ranking military leaders sat around a massive black table, watching the holographic replay of their destroyer's destruction for the 20th time. Grand Marshal Vexthor, the oldest living military commander in the Empire, leaned forward on his hover chair. His scales had long since turned from bright blue to a pale gray with age, but his eyes still burned with sharp intelligence. "Play it again," he commanded. "Slower this time." The scene unfolded once more. The destroyers approached Earth. Then strange energy readings appeared. Then, nothing. 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships, gone in minutes. Impossible. General Krylak muttered, his war medals clicking as he shook his head. Their technology was scanned. They barely had faster-than-light travel. How did they hide this? A young science officer named Televa stepped forward, her hands trembling as she held her datapad. Sirs, we found something in the battle zone analysis. Speak, Vexthor ordered. The humans weren't using normal space technology. Their weapons operated on principles we've never seen before. She projected new images above the table. They manipulated gravity itself. They created localized quantum fields that ignored our shields completely. And most disturbing, they had perfected quantum entanglement weapons. The council members shifted uncomfortably. These were technologies they had theorized about but never managed to create. How long? Vexthor asked. How long have they had these weapons? Telva pulled up more data, based on their message. Over 100 years. Sir, they developed these when they first started looking at the stars, before they even left their planet. Admiral Zondar, commander of the Empire's largest fleet, slammed his fist on the table. That's impossible. No species develops weapons before they need them. Humans do, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Miratel, the cultural researcher, entering the chamber. That's what I've been trying to tell Command. Humans don't think like us. She connected her data crystal to the display system. Images of human history filled the room. Their wars, their weapons, their constant innovation. Look at their space program, she pointed. Every civilian technology they developed for space exploration had a military application. Their satellite network, dual purpose for communication and warfare. Their space stations, built to withstand attacks. Even their mining operations in space were designed to gather materials for weapons. The Council watched in growing horror as more data appeared. Humans had built their entire civilization around the possibility of war. Not because they wanted it, but because they had learned through millions of years of evolution to always be ready. And now for the worst part, Miratel continued. Remember how their weapons seem to appear from nowhere? They have entire fleets hidden throughout their solar system. We never saw them because we weren't looking for quantum signatures. We were looking for normal engine emissions. Vexthor studied the data carefully. You're saying they built their defenses specifically to counter our technology. But how did they know our capabilities? They didn't, Telva answered. They built weapons to counter every possible type of technology they could imagine. The weapons they used against our destroyers. Those were just the ones that worked best against our specific systems. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for every possible type of war, against every possible type of enemy. Grand Marshal, Admiral Zondar spoke quietly. What are your orders? Vexthor stared at the replay one final time, watching his mighty destroyers vanish before an enemy that had tried to warn them away. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with, he finally said. Not just their weapons, but their thinking. How does a species become so prepared for a war they hadn't even fought yet? What he didn't say, what everyone in the room was thinking, was an even scarier question. If these were their old weapons, what were their new ones capable of? The Imperial Palace's diplomatic chamber had never been so tense. The massive crystalline walls, usually glowing with soft blue light, seemed darker today. A single human vessel had requested permission to dock, carrying what they called historical records. Grand Marshal Vexthor sat at the head of the reception committee, flanked by armed guards and the Empire's best scientists. The human ship's design had terrified their military experts. It was completely smooth, with no visible weapons or engines. It simply existed, defying their scans. The chamber doors opened. A single human female walked in, dressed in a simple blue uniform. Ambassador Sarah Martinez carried only a small silver cube. "Thank you for receiving me," she said, her universal translator working perfectly. Another surprise, as they hadn't shared their language database. Vexthor gestured to an empty seat. You said you have information that would explain recent events. Martinez placed the silver cube on the table. It projected a hologram of Earth, but not as it was now. This was Earth millions of years ago. To understand humans, she began, you need to understand where we came from. This is our homeworld, what we call a death world. The hologram showed massive predators, natural disasters, and extreme environments. The Imperial scientists watched in horror as early humans survived things that would have killed most species. Unlike your species, Martinez continued, we didn't evolve in stable environments. Every day was a fight for survival. Every invention we made was to survive something trying to kill us. The images change, showing human evolution. The Imperial researchers' expressions shifted from horror to fascination. Other species developed tools first, Martinez explained. We developed weapons, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. When we weren't fighting nature, we were fighting each other. Each war made us stronger, smarter, more innovative. She touched the cube again. Now it showed human medical technology. Even our medicine was developed through warfare. Trauma surgery, emergency medical procedures, even our understanding of the human body. Much of it came from treating more injuries. The Empire's chief scientist, Dr. Kelvin, couldn't stay quiet. But your space technology, your quantum weapons, Martinez nodded. When we first looked at the stars, we saw beauty, but we also saw danger. Our stories, our movies, our books, they were full of scenarios about hostile aliens, not because we wanted war, but because we needed to be ready. Every piece of technology we developed had dual purposes, civilian and military. The hologram showed Earth's early space program. While you saw primitive rockets, we were already developing quantum technology. While you detected basic satellites, we were building invisible defense networks. We didn't do this because we were aggressive. We did it because our entire history taught us one lesson: be prepared. Vexthor leaned forward. Are you saying everything we detected about your civilization was a facade? Martinez finished. The technology you saw was what we wanted you to see. The weapons we used against your destroyers, they're decades old. We have entire research divisions developing technologies your empire hasn't even theorized yet. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just defeated 3 destroyers. They had done it with outdated weapons. But why warn us? Asked Miratel, who had been quietly observing. Why tell us to run? Martinez's expression softened. Because we don't want war. We never did. Every weapon we built, every defense we created, was meant to prevent war. In our history, the best way to avoid conflict was to be so well prepared that no one would dare start one. She stood up, preparing to leave. We're sharing these records not to threaten you, but to help you understand. Humanity doesn't seek conquest. We seek survival. And we've become very, very good at it. As she walked out, the silver cube continued projecting images, telling the story of a species that had turned their entire existence into preparation for a war they hoped would never come. The Empire had finally understood the warning. It wasn't a threat. It was mercy. The Imperial Council's emergency session had been running for 3 days straight. The massive circular chamber, designed to hold the Empire's 100 most powerful leaders, was filled with heated discussions and worried whispers. High Chancellor Dexmar, the Empire's supreme leader, sat quietly on his crystalline throne, watching the chaos unfold. His normally pristine white robes showed wrinkles from the long sessions. The humans, he finally spoke, silencing the room. What are their demands? General Krelak stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. That's the strange part, Your Excellence. They haven't made any. They simply shared their history and returned to their territory. Military analyst Renvi activated the central hologram, showing footage from Earth's archives. The images made several council members flinch. Scenes of human warfare through the ages, each more devastating than the last. We've been analyzing their combat footage, Renvi explained. Their entire approach to warfare is different. When our species fight wars, we focus on conquest, on gaining territory or resources. She pulled up comparison charts. But humans, they fight for survival. They don't stop when they're winning. They don't stop when they achieve their objectives. They only stop when the threat is completely gone. Cultural researcher Miratel stepped up next. And that's not even the most terrifying part. Show them the adaptation rates. New data filled the room. Graphs showing how quickly humans developed new technologies during conflicts. In their Second World War, Miratel pointed, they went from primitive aircraft to jet engines in 6 years. Their nuclear physics program accomplished in months what took other species decades. When humans face a threat, they don't just fight it. They evolve to overcome it. The council murmured nervously. This defied everything they knew about technological development. Admiral Zondar, still shaken from the destroyer incident, spoke up. Their weapons, the ones they used against our ships, we thought they were showing off their best technology. They weren't. Renvi interrupted. Those weapons were old, outdated. They used them because they were adequate for the task, not because they were their best. High Chancellor Dexmar leaned forward. What are you saying? We've detected energy signatures from their research facilities, Renvi explained. They're working with forces we can't even measure. Their primitive civilization has mastered concepts our scientists thought impossible. Miratel brought up the human warning message again. Now we understand why they told us to run. It wasn't a threat. It was genuine concern. They knew what would happen if we forced them to fight. They don't want to show us their real capabilities, General Krylak added. Not because they're afraid, but because they know it would destabilize the galactic power balance. The council chamber fell silent as security footage from the destroyer battle played again. The ease with which human weapons had overcome Imperial defenses was haunting. There's something else, Miratel said quietly. In their history, whenever humans faced a powerful enemy, they didn't just defeat them. They made sure they could never be threatened by the same thing again. If we continue aggression, they won't just defend themselves. They'll make sure we can never threaten them again. Dexmar finished, understanding finally dawning on his ancient face. The council watched more human historical footage. Their wars, their recoveries, their constant preparation for the next challenge. So what do we do? Someone asked. High Chancellor Dexmar stood, his decision made. We do the one thing no one in Imperial history has ever done before. He paused, looking at each council member. We learn from our mistake. The humans warned us to run not because they were weak, but because they knew exactly what they were capable of. He turned to his diplomatic course. Prepare a peace proposal, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The humans don't want war. They've just spent their entire existence preparing for it. And that makes them the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. The Empire had finally understood. Sometimes the most powerful civilizations aren't the ones that seek war, but the ones that are always ready for it. 5 years after the destroyer incident, the Imperial capital looked very different. Human diplomatic vessels now docked regularly at the spaceport, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the angular Imperial ships. But it wasn't their appearance that caught everyone's attention. It was the respectful distance other ships kept from them. Ambassador Martinez stood at the window of her new office in the Imperial Tower, watching ships move through the purple alien sky. Behind her, a group of Imperial military officers waited nervously for today's training session. Ambassador, General Krylak said, now serving as the liaison between human and Imperial forces. The War College students are ready for your lecture. Martinez smiled. Teaching Imperial officers about human military philosophy hadn't been part of her original mission, but it had become one of the most effective parts of the new peace treaty. In the lecture hall, hundreds of young Imperial officers sat straight in their seats. On their tablets, they had a required reading. The Art of War by Sun Tzu, a human book thousands of years old that still made them uncomfortable with its insights. Today, Martinez began. We're going to discuss why humans build bunkers during peacetime, and why we never stopped improving our weapons even after achieving world peace. In another part of the capital, High Chancellor Dexmar was meeting with Earth's President Chen in his private gardens. The scene would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. The Empire's supreme leader and a human, talking as equals. Your military advisors have been enlightening, Dexmar admitted, his aged scales shimmering in the sunlight. Our entire defense strategy has changed. President Chen nodded. We noticed. Your new planetary shields are impressive, though we hope you never need them. That's the most important lesson we learned from humans, Dexmar said. Prepare for war to preserve peace. Across the galaxy, things were changing. Imperial ships now carried quantum detection systems, designed with human help. Their crews trained for scenarios they hoped never to face. Every Imperial world had started building defensive systems, not out of fear, but from understanding. In the Imperial military archives, a new section had been created. Behind heavy security doors, researchers studied the footage from the destroyed destroyers. The section had a simple name: the Earth Lesson. Young Imperial officers were required to study it, to understand why overconfidence could be fatal. But more importantly, they learned why humans had tried to warn them instead of just destroying them. Back in her office, Martinez finished her lecture. The young officers filed out, looking thoughtful. General Krelak stayed behind. There's something I never asked, he said. Those destroyers we sent, you could have destroyed our entire fleet that day, couldn't you? Martinez's expression turned serious. General, humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our ability to fight. It's our desire to avoid fighting unless absolutely necessary. We warned you because every human conflict has taught us that the best victories are the ones where no one has to die. In Earth's orbit, the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory now carried a new inscription on its hull, written in both Imperial and human languages. Si vis pacem, parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. The Empire had changed. They no longer sought to conquer, but to protect. Their ships didn't intimidate. They stood ready to defend. And at every Imperial military academy, classes now began with the story of how Earth had tried to warn them. As night fell on the Imperial capital, Ambassador Martinez sent her daily report to Earth. It was brief. They finally understand. They're not just copying our weapons or tactics. They're learning why we developed them. The peace will hold. In the end, humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from their superior weapons or advanced technology. It had come from teaching an empire that true strength lies not in conquering others, but in being so well prepared that no one dares to start a war. The Empire never had war with humans before. Thanks to their warning, they never would. The end.